Welcome back to Car Mechanic Simulator 2021. If you're enjoying this series or any content on the channel, don't forget to subscribe, and a like on the videos does really help. After our 2 episodes of rebuilding cars that we got from the scrapyard, today we're going back to the story cars. It is the Bolt Cargo. And here it is. Sorry about the delay there. I was expecting that to be quicker than I was. This is the Bolt Cargo. I don't know if we've done one as a customer car previously. It's seen better days. That's the only real way of describing it, I would have said. So standard version, 1995, Bolt Cargo. It's done a lot of miles, 315,000 kilometres. That's a lot. The current colour is beige, I think, although you can't tell for all the rust. It's got a V8 0HV engine. So it's quite a powerful engine, but obviously it's designed for loads and moving heavy things. According to the story, the garage has been recommended and the person couldn't believe there was anything here. But he's glad we are. He uses it every day for work. It's a bit worn out. Yep, you're telling me. It's not missing anything, that's a bonus, apart from the engine's crackling and drops in power. But it's not missing anything. I don't see any major problems, okay, but maybe it's a matter of habit. Please take a closer look at the suspension. The car's often carrying some loads. That tells me the suspension's going to be a bit of an issue. And the routine stuff as well. There's 8 pages of parts to find. That's going to be interesting. Yeah, it's definitely not going to be your normal polish and done. First thing we're going to do, we're going to take it for a wash because there's no way I can fix this in the state it's in. So we'll take it for a wash first, and we're back in the garage after that wash. It hasn't really changed the look of it, has it? But we'll do the usual examination. We'll speed through it as normal. There's already red components already being found. The rest, a majority are yellow, to be fair. I'll be fair to it. The majority are yellow, which does mean they're probably within the limits. We don't need to do anything with them. We'll start our tests as well while we're here. Some of them we can't be done. The engine does not start. And I really wanted to use the test track. The test path, sorry, today. I don't know why we bought it. I want to utilise it. Otherwise it's kind of a bit of a waste of 10 grand. But the van, I'm going to keep calling it car, I know. The van does not start. So I thought, why don't we try and get it started and then go to the test path, and then that will tell us all the suspension issues. Save us lots of time in the long run. Boy, was I wrong. But anyway, we're going to start trying to get it started. So we're going to take off the fan, then the belt, and then the alternator. The alternator is definitely no good. It's unfixable as well. So we have to buy a new alternator, and we need a new serpentine belt while we're at it. That could be all we need to do to get this car started. I guarantee there's probably more to it. And a lot of stuff we did find during our examination and other checks. Always forget it's in the electronic part. I should have known that. Alternator, electronics. So to start with, we're going to aim to get the car running. Then we'll go to the test path, and hopefully that will help us out going forward. Make things a little bit easier. So alternator back in now with a brand new one. Look at that. Look at the difference. Definitely tell that's new. Brand new serpentine belt as well. The old fan can go back on. It's not below the minimum required to fix. The minimum required to fix is actually 58%. I had to check my notes. We'll have a look underneath the car now. I did spot something previously that could also make this fan not start. I'm going to keep saying van and car. I'm going to mix the two quite often. Apologies in advance. So I did spot something. If you have a look, there we go. Starter motor. The reason the van doesn't start could be the fact the starter motor is no good. It's red, again, can't be fixed, so we need a brand new one. But that could explain a lot of our issues. While we're under the van though, I'm spotting a few other problems. You can see some of the issues with the van just by being underneath it while we replace the starter motor. So the fuel filter, I think I can already see this front right spring is no good either. Yeah, there's a few issues to this van. He did say suspension probably needs looking at because of the loads it carries. I didn't think the engine would be the one causing us the biggest issue though. So we're going to now do our test. If we can get this to run, we should be able to do a compression test. And this is important because this determines whether we take the engine out or not. This is why I wanted this one going. And straight away, rocker arms, piston rings, yeah, the engine's got to come out. I'm glad we did it, because if we hadn't and just replaced the surface components that we could tell were wrong, we would have had to take this out anyway further down the line. Piston rings and things, there's nothing you can do. The engine has to come out. You've got to take the whole engine apart. So glad we managed to get it started. And that is a lot of problems with that engine. He did say it was cackling, didn't he? I think we know the reason why. While we're here, we'll do a fuel pressure test as well. It's always worth checking. And again, there's more issues. The fuel pump's gone. The fuel filter we did spot, to be honest. So, now, let's take this to the test path. We've got it running. Let's go to the test path and give this a go. Bad news. We did go to the test path, but the van wouldn't start. And we wouldn't start enough for the test path to work. So all the oil we put in and all this kind of stuff to get it to work in the test path isn't going to work. We're going to have to take the engine out. There's no other choice for it. We may aim to take the engine out, fix it all up, and then get it back to the test path afterwards, just to help us find the suspension problems. But yeah, a little bit annoyed. We got it all the way to the point it could start in here for our test, but the test path itself is not enough, which is unfortunate. But we'll drain the oil first, and then we'll get this engine out, and we will have a look at replacing or fixing the parts that are no good. Luckily for us, one of the most expensive parts on any vehicle is generally the gearbox, and this gearbox actually looks in good condition. But from this view, we can already see the rear suspension of the car isn't brilliant. Don't need a test path to tell me that by the looks of things. Right, our brand new starter motor needs to come off. We can then take the gearbox off. And then after that, a little bit of the exhaust, just to allow the engine to leave the engine bay. And then we can have a look at this engine properly. I've done it times before where I've got to a point of fixing an engine and I've taken it out, fixed it, gone to put it back in, and because I haven't checked enough, I've had to take it back out a second time, and that's what I'm trying to avoid by being as thorough as possible beforehand. Sometimes it's not possible. If the van doesn't start or a car doesn't start, you've always got that issue, and it does make testing harder. And sometimes it's easier to try and get it started, so then you finish off your tests. Sometimes it's worth just taking the whole thing out. We need to drain fluids as well. Power steering reservoir needs to be drained. It's part of the general service he wants as well. We need to replace liquids. We need to drain the radiator. So in most of the vehicles you normally have a coolant reservoir or a radiator. The radiator has a little clip on it, you know you've got to drain it. And we've got the window washer. Although I didn't need to drain that, I'm not sure why I did, to be honest. And the same as the brake servo. You don't actually have to drain the brake servo unless it tells you to replace the liquid or the fluid. It's something I learned previously. I learnt it fairly recently. I've always drained it for no particular reason, unless it's told me to. I've just always done it. And actually, I now realise you don't have to. Which is something. Right, engine crane is there. We won't put an engine in again. I do this a lot. I press install instead of take out. I don't know why. One of those little issues that I can't get myself out of, little habits. And here is our looking sorry for itself engine. So it's a good lump, I'll give you that. We are, as always, going to speed up the dismantling of the engine. There's a lot of bolts. And because we're not fully sped up yet with all our upgrades on bolts and things, it's not worth you guys seeing us do it in real time. It takes a while. There's a lot of bolts and a lot of components to get to. And because the pistons need replacing, we have to actually take everything off. We have to strip this back to the engine block itself. I always try and avoid doing that unless we have to, just because it's time consuming. But we haven't got a choice. Every time there's pistons involved, you've got to get down to the bare bones of the engine. And that's what we're doing here. Now, this engine does have push rods. We've made mistakes with those before. We've got to be a little bit careful what we're doing with those. We've had a few issues with them kind of engines previously. I'm hoping to avoid it today. I think you can tell by the title of the video, that may not be the case. Now we're taking off the front area, so all the timing, the water pump. There we go, the timing belt. And now we can take off the last bits from the top. There we go, and now it's turned upside down, and we can take out all the pistons. And even the crankshaft needs replacing, so it's a good job we took it off. That's a major rebuild of that engine. I hope he wasn't expecting a cheap job, because for me that's an expensive job. So every part has now been fixed that we could possibly fix. That wasn't much, to be honest. Obviously pistons can't be fixed and things like that. We haven't got a crankshaft. We couldn't fix the crankshaft. We're going to head to the warehouse, I think, and have a look. I may have one in the warehouse. Yeah, so 0V8, 0HV, F. I'm trying to utilise the warehouse as much as possible. I know we're trying to utilise it for rebuilds, but I also want to utilise it as much as possible for jobs to save us some money, really, if anything. It's always worth trying to save money where possible. It would increase our profit if we can. Now, just looking through here, I don't think we have one. Unfortunately, we don't have much in the warehouse currently. So we're going to need to buy a new crankshaft. And with that, we're probably going to have to buy everything else. So what we're going to do, we're going to put the crankshaft we did just buy it in. And then we're going to try and list all the parts we need to buy, because there's a few here. And we're just going to crack on and get it done. I didn't want to show me buying every part. I think that'd take forever. It was quite a few parts. So there's a lot of this engine is going to be brand new. Hope you appreciate it, the customer. We better make a decent profit out of this, because time-wise, this is taking a while. I was hoping for a nice quick fix. Obviously, story cars generally do take their time. I don't know what it is, but they always seem to be a bit more complicated than normal customer jobs. And the profits don't normally relate to the job you've had to do. We had to spend several times going back and forth to the van just to see what the minimum percentage was. I was just being a bit careful of what needed replacing and what didn't. Obviously, cutting costs and saving money where possible. Try not to go overboard in the repairs. If it didn't need to be 100%, we wouldn't do it 100%. We're just trying to get the engine back to a suitable standard for the job itself. I did originally come into this thinking we'd do everything 100%, would go above and beyond with all the jobs, and I very quickly realised it's not worth it. You will lose money hand over fist. So because of that, we do what the job requires. We do it to the best of our ability, admittedly, but we do the job as required. So push rods and rocker arms now going in. There's a few of these. In fact, there is 8 either side. That's 16 push rods and 16 rocker arms. These do get a bit tedious, and you have to try and get the right view on it to be able to see them. Especially the rods, they're very difficult to spot sometimes. Let's put it that way. Okay, we are nearly finished. Now, can you spot my mistake? Because I didn't. This is the big mistake we made with this van. If you've spotted it, well done. Let us know in the comments if you did. You'll soon realise what it is once we get this back in the van, to be fair. But that is the engine done. Nice little look around just to make sure it's all done. I've still not noticed. I'll point it out shortly, because it's going to be very obvious in a little while. So engine is done, we think. We can take it back to the van, put it back in. And then my thinking is, if we can get the van started, we can still do test pass. So there we go. The engine is back in the van, where it belongs. So now we can put on all the underneath stuff, including the gearbox. That can all go back on. And the starter motor. It's not that, we didn't forget the starter motor. And also the, I forgot what it's called. It'll tell me in a second. Oh, the exhaust parts can go back on as well, just to, solidify the engine back in place. There we go. And the drive shaft, that was the word I was looking for. Could not for the life of me think of what it was called. The drive shaft back in place. So as far as I'm concerned, this van, once we put liquids back in, will run. Have you spotted the issue? So, engine crane away, van is down, we can now refill liquids. And I can't believe, the little clue to the mistake we've made. I can't believe we're saying that made the same mistake 2 episodes in a row. One with our last rebuild car, the Bolt Chapman that we rebuilt last episode. The exact same mistake we've done a second time running. And it's such a big mistake, I don't understand why I'm making it. I've got to pay a bit more attention maybe. It's one of those weird ones. If you figured out what the mistake is I'm talking about, congratulations. It's not as easily noticeable for us just yet, because if you've noticed on the right hand side of the engine, the oil refill cap is there. So obviously it's not currently an issue, because we can refill the engine with oil. So that's one of the reasons I didn't spot it immediately. Right, we're now filling up the radiator. Keep as much in there as possible. That should be done. And now we can look at the oil refill. There we go. So I'm still adamant this car will work now. And then we should be able to take it to the test path and get it running. Now I'll let you know what happened. So basically I didn't put the push rods, the rocker arms or the engine cover on the left hand side of that engine. It's quite a big issue. The engine won't start. We didn't know this. We took it to a test track and I had to spend some time fiddling around putting the parts on that I'd missed. We did do it. It wasn't an issue. And we're just finishing off the test now. And I'm kind of glad we did it. Look at all the parts that are no good. Some of these I think visibly we would have seen. The reason the test path is helpful is rubber bushings, my nemesis. It helps you know they definitely need checking and taking out. Doesn't make life that much easier, but it just highlights everything a little bit easier and you can actually add it to the job sheet. I think it helps more with not going above and beyond, if anything. So rear shocks as well, rear axle knuckles, rubber bushings, there's quite a few of those that need replacing, including the small rubber bushings as well. 2 wheel hub bearings, and there's still a part undiscovered, or 2 parts undiscovered, but that'd be something that none of the tests can pick up. But that should be obvious to us, hopefully. I'm saying hopefully. So far this van has taken a lot longer than it should have done. I've had to repair it in the test path. But now we can start on the suspension. The engine is running superbly. We've fixed the engine. There is no more problems with that. So it's suspension only now. And brakes. So not only, but yeah, suspension and brakes. So we'll start with the front right. Brake pads have gone, as you can see. Caliper's fine. The wheel's okay. And the brake disc ventilator is gone as well. Anything else in this front end? So straight away, we take the sway bar front end off. That would enable us to take the sway bar off in a bit. We need to do the other side first. Just double checking everything else. I think we just caught sight of the wheel hub bearing. Yes, that needs replacing, so that's off. We need to take the shock absorber off. You can see the spring has gone. I think the shock absorber itself is okay, but the spring isn't. Now, anything else this side while we're here? Rubber bushings, can't forget about those. That one's actually saying it's okay. It's yellow, not red. I think that is above the minimum. We'll keep it off. It's not an issue. We'll just keep it off while it's there. And the rubber bushings in the lower arm there is off, is no good as well. So we'll take that off. There's another one over here that's definitely gone. That's that rubber bushing out. I think that's the front right done. So front left now. Wheel to come off. Bolts are a pain sometimes. I'm looking forward to the sped up bolt taking off skill. It'll make life a bit quicker. Caliper's fine, but brake pads have gone again, and the brake disc once more is no good. We can fix brake pads, not brake pads, brake discs for free with the lathe, but you can't fix them if they're red. Same rule still applies all other parts. So unfortunately that one was definitely a red, so that's definitely not been fixed. We need to take the shock absorber off. Again, the spring has gone inside. He did say he carries weight in the van and uses it for work, so that would explain why. And we have got the sway bar needs to come off as well by the looks of things. There we go. And this front spring can come off as well. So we won't need to replace every part of that, I don't think. It will just be the springs themselves. Another rubber bush. bane of my life. And again, that one looks okay. We'll still take it out because I'm nervous with these. I always want to make sure we've double checked them. That's the thing. Apologies for the view. I know you can't see what we're taking off. It's the lower suspension arm or bottom suspension arm, and I think that's everything at the front done. I can't see anything else. I'm just visually checking and hovering over just to see percentages which we've gained via the test path and our other tests. I can't see any other issues. So we'll go off and fix everything, and then we're back now after fixing everything that we could, or buying replacements if needed, and we can put all the front end back together. So we'll start with the front right. Bearings back in, caps on there. Brand new brake pads. It's lovely when you see the difference. It's very satisfying fixing the cars. When you're taking something that's very rusted and brown and broken down and you put something shiny and new back in, it is extremely satisfying. It's like if you've ever done jet washing before, and you jet wash a really dirty path, seeing it get clean is just really satisfying. It's one of those weird things. I think it's just one of those things that just feels really good. So rubber bushings as well now, we can put these in. Nicely done, another 100% one. So if you remember when we actually took this off, the rubber bushings out from this side and the left hand side actually, they weren't under the minimum required, but I've replaced them anyway. Mainly because I'm always concerned they're going to cause us an issue. And they're not expensive. So although we try not to go above and beyond because it costs us money in the long run, rubber bushings aren't going to break the bank. So I'm not too worried about doing it with rubber bushes. Plus it saves me having a nervous breakdown when I can't find the one we're missing. So if we've replaced them all, bonus for us. So on the front left now, wheel hub cap going on, bearings back in, and we've got the bottom suspension arm to go back on. And that's all in place. Rubber bush back in as well, brand new one, nice and shiny. Shock absorber can go, nice and done. And then we've got the upper suspension arm. And then we have the front bar, the sway bar front end link to hold the sway bar in place. Rubber bushing again. I think we're good. We just need brake pads on this front left. It's going well. Considering the issues we had with the engine and me being silly and not spotting the very glaring mistake, generally the car's been okay. Car fan. Not getting it started and being adamant I'm using the test path probably cost us a lot of time. But again, would I have spotted all these suspension issues, rubber bushes? I would literally have to manually check every single one. Whereas if you've done the test path, it tells you. It's weighing that up. Pros and cons. So on the rear left now, you can see the issues behind the wheel arch, but with the wheel itself, brake pads are off. We're going to need to take the brake disc off because we need to check some of this. So the axle needs to come out. There we go, that slides out nicely. There is a red part in there, and to get to it we have to take the whole front axle, rear axle, off. There we go. Now we have these wishbones, and we need to take off the U-bolts holding them. Or I say U-bolts, they're leaf spring bolts. And these are our leaf springs. I know I called them something else, that's just me. You have to take the bushing out before you can take them off, which at least guarantees you're checking it. Rear shock as well on the rear left. There's another bushing to the right, so 2 bushings per leaf spring. And the leaf spring is off. I think that's the rear left all done. So rear right now. To do all of this, we've got to take the tyres off. That's kind of why I did the front first, rear last. Just so we can make sure the right tyres get back on in the right place. Kind of make it, trying to keep a decent pattern of what we do so it makes sense when we're doing it. And if we miss something, it's easily found. Not always the case, but we try. Brake disc off as well now. Rear drive axle. That will enable us to get to everything behind it. So the wheel hub. Okay, so the rear axle knuckle needs to come off the housing. The shock absorber is no good, and you can see again the leaf spring is once more no good as well. Down to the heavy weight he probably carries in the back of the van, more than likely. But we need to take the leaf spring new bolts out first. 2 of those, off they go, and then we can't take it off, and it's not because the rubber bushings. The rubber bushings do need to come out, but that's not the reason we couldn't take it off. You may have spotted there is something underneath it. We did it on the other side. I'm looking around trying to figure out why I can't take it off. It's quite an obvious issue. I don't know what was going on. I just couldn't think for the minute. Oh look, there it is. The spring plate, the leaf spring plate. There we go. All off. So we're going to take all these parts. We're going to fix what we can, buy the replacements where we can, and we're back. So we have brought the replacements, fixed what we can, spend a little bit of money, but we're okay. And now it's time to put everything back together. So leaf spring back in place. Small rubber bushing. And the shock absorber. The leaf spring plate. Again, they didn't need fixing. Did we fix I think we fixed the one on the rear left. We didn't fix the one on the rear right, because the rear right was above minimum. And I think we only fixed the minimum amount needed on the rear left. Small rubber bushing as well, the leaf spring. Can't forget that one. They're easily missed, to be honest. So I'll try and make sure we do them as we put the leaf spring in. That way we can't miss them. So back to the wheel hub. We've got the solid rear drive axle sliding through. We can put our brake disc back on. Brand new brake pads. Looks better already, doesn't it, this van? It's a shame we don't have to paint it, to be honest. Or fix the bodywork. It needs it. And rear wheel back on as well. And that is 3/4 of this vehicle now done suspension wise. 1/4 to go. Rear left. That's everything. I was having a small issue. I kept thinking I'd missed something. I couldn't quite remember what it was. That's what made me keep checking. I was something in the back of my head said I'd missed something, and I couldn't work out what it was. But we'll move on to the rear left. So the axle knuckle housing back in place, leaf spring, and then don't forget the rubber bushings. Make sure they're in as well. Rear shock and the plate. And then we've got 2 U-bolts as well, just to hold it in place. Okay, rubber bushing, can't forget that one. That's the important one, the second one. And then we can rebuild the wheel axle. So we'll wheel hub first. I need to get a decent view on this, I can't quite see what I'm doing. And the solid rear drive axle. Brake disc now. Nice and shiny. Brake pads. Brake caliper. And then the wheel. And that, in theory, and I say in theory for a reason, is the van all done. Now, unbeknownst to me, at this point, we'd missed something. We'll find out in a second. If we go across the 8 pages of parts, there's a rubber bushing missing. We haven't replaced one. No idea which one. Oh look, there's a second one. So we're missing 2 rubber bushings. After much deliberation and looking around, I finally found the ones I'd missed. The upper front suspension arm. To take it off, we're going to take the wheel off once again. So if you saw what we did on the front left, as this is the front right, we did the lower and upper suspension arms. We took them off and there was an issue. But we did the front right first and we only did the lower one. So that's where we missed these 2 rubber bushings. It didn't take me that long to spot it, honestly. It was just a pain because I was annoyed at myself for not doing it in the order we took it off. We should have done both. I don't know why we didn't. Silly mistake on my part. But we found it, it's done. 2 brand new ones straight in place. Perfect. The wheel can go back on, and then that should be bang complete. We'll have to double check. I always double check. There's always something you could possibly miss. Hopefully we haven't. So we can lower it down. And lo and behold, that should be done. Let's have a look at the job sheet. I think that is done. I think we're happy. So while we look at this job sheet, we'll talk about numbers. So we spent £3,443 fixing this vehicle. We got paid £7,573, and we made a profit of £4,130. As I did say earlier, story cars don't give you a decent profit, but they're meant to be the experience. It's meant to be the way to start buying new parts for the garage. So test track and stuff is all related to your story car. It's kind of that push to keep moving forward. But we've done them. We made a small profit, £4,000. It's a little bit. It's not bad. We've got £91,000 sitting in the bank as we spend some of the skill points now to give us abilities to inspect for car values, try and get some discount on parts, more profit again, and look at what else we need to get in the future. We'll do an increased mounting on mounting speed. That will help us speed things up a little bit. And we've got to work towards a dyno. I think that's the next upgrade for the actual garage itself. I think that's the main focus now, is dyno. We'll need it, I'm assuming, sooner rather than later in terms of cars and jobs and things like that. So we've got a case to open as well. And as I said at the start, if you are enjoying the series, don't forget to subscribe and drop a like on the videos as well. That does really help. And that is it for today. We'll finish by looking at what the next story car is. And it's a Hinata Kagura SX. A little bit of an interesting one, but I'm sure we'll look it up very, very soon. But for now, that is it for today. Thank you all very much for joining us, and we'll see you again very, very soon.